Hello, what's going on folks? My name is Chris, and in this video I'm going to show you a custom study I made in Sierra Chart to send a telegram to yourself or to a group on Telegram from the Sierra Chart trading software. This is a custom study. It's open source. You can go and view the source code. I'm going to go over the source code at the very end of the video. Now I'm going to show you how to set it up, how to get it working. So all I have here is a fresh Sierra Chart install. And as you can see here, I have the example chart book opened up. It has maybe about 8 or 9 charts in it. And this is a completely fresh install, so all the settings were default. The only setting I changed was to allow the data to download faster on Linux because I'm running on Linux. That's all. First thing is that the study is already in my Sierra Chart data folder. And the reason for that is because my Sierra Chart username is authorized to use the study. So if you want to use the study, you can send me an email at support@VerrilloTrading.com and I will add you to the list of authorized users. If you want to go ahead and compile the code yourself, you can do that too, but it's a little more complex because you have to add some additional dependencies like CURL and boost formatting libraries. So I'm in my Sierra Chart Fresh installation directory. It's called Sierra Chart Fresh. And I'm going to go into the data folder. And if you look carefully, there's a couple of DLLs here. This is the DLL we're going to be talking about here today, VT_SC Telegram Drawing Alert _64.dll. If we inspect the DLL, it will not be signed. Unfortunately, I'm working on that maybe. And it's about almost a megabyte large because I had to statically link CURL. Okay. And that's it. So the DLL is already there, so I can go ahead and open it up on my chart. So I'm going to go ahead onto my first Sierra chart here. Doesn't really matter which chart, it could be any chart. And I'm going to go up to Analysis, Studies, and then go to Add Custom Study, and then find the study here, which is called VerrilloTrading Telegram Chart Drawing Alerts, and I will add it to the chart. Press Apply, and you can see the first message we get here is that you must specify a Telegram chat ID. Okay, fine. So let's go over to the study, and the first thing I want to show you is how to get the documentation. So I double-clicked on the study there to open up the study settings. I'm going to click on Description here. And the description basically brings you to the documentation page. On my website, there's also the same documentation listed, so you can view it there or here. Or on the GitHub repo, it's all the same documentation. Okay, so there's some information here about that, about what it does and everything. But what we want is how to set it up and use the study. So the first thing is we need the chat ID of where we want to send our telegram. And by the way, the study takes care of the formatting of the message and everything. So it's going to send you a pre-formatted message that contains all the most important information, at least what I thought was the most important information regarding your chart drawing alerts. So you'll see what kind of message it sends. It also sends a screenshot of the chart, and we'll go over that here in a second. So the first thing is getting the Telegram chat ID. The easiest way that I know to get the Telegram chat ID is to use Telegram Web version A because the chat ID appears in the address bar. So what I will do is go over to Telegram Web. So right now I'm on Telegram Web here, I'm logged in, and at the top left corner you should see this drop down which says switch to A version or switch to K version. You need to be on Telegram Web A in order to ensure that the chat ID here in the address bar is the correct number. So I created a brand new group here. It's called Sierra Testing Group, and the chat ID for the group is at the end of the address bar. So it starts with that minus. Right after the number character, that's the chat ID. So it's -4011, etc. Now this custom study uses a Telegram bot. So the bot is not going to be able to send any messages to my group until I invite the bot to the group. This is going to be the same if you're using the default bot that the study comes with or your own custom bot that you can set up. Okay, so I want to be just absolutely clear about one thing here. If you reach out to me and you want to be included in the list of authorized users, you will have access to the default bot that I've configured in the source code. On the GitHub repository, the source code is all there. However, I've removed that bot from the source code because it's a private bot token, and if I disclose that, then everybody would be able to take control of that particular bot and mislead people with it. So that bot is this one right here. So if you decide to use your own bot, remember you're going to have to compile the study yourself with all the necessary dependencies, and then you're going to have to tell the study explicitly that you're using a new bot, okay? But for now, we're using the default bot. So I'm going to take the URL of the default bot right here, and I'm just going to paste the URL into Telegram desktop here, and it'll bring up the bot. Right here, this is the default bot that the study uses. It's called Sierra Chart Drawing Alerts, and if you look at the username, it's VT_Sierra Chart _sender _bot. So I'm going to add this bot to that new group I created. So I'll click on Add to Group, and you can only do this on Telegram desktop or on mobile, by the way. So I'll click on Sierra Testing Group, add it to the group. And if you want the bot to send you private messages too, you also need to start a private chat with the bot. So you click on the bot and then you click on start at the bottom. If you do not start the private chat, the bot cannot message you. Okay, let's go on and let's continue. So now that the bot's been added to the group, we need to get the chat ID of the group. So I'm back on Telegram web. I'm going to copy this number starting with the minus to my clipboard. Groups on Telegram, as well as subtopics for groups, start with a negative number. Sometimes they start with -0. Okay, so now I'll go back to Sierra Chart and I'm going to paste in the Telegram chat ID to send the message to, which is that negative number right there. I will apply it. The next most important setting that you need to turn on here, it's absolutely essential for the study to even work, is you go to Global Settings, General Settings, Log, and then Save Alerts Log to File. Turn it on to yes, apply all. Okay, there's a couple other quick steps to get the study working. The next one is this one, full path to chart image folder. So I'm going to close the study settings for now, and I'm going to go up to Global Settings, General Settings, then I'll go to Paths, and now right here under Chart Image Folder. So depending on where you have Sierra Chart installed, or if you're running it on Linux or something, this path here is going to be different. So it's unlikely that the default path in the study that I put there is going to be the right one right off the bat, unless you're running on Windows and Sierra Chart is installed in the C drive. In that case, it might work right away. But if you have Sierra Chart installed in a different place, or you're running on Linux or something, then you're going to have to go into this menu here and grab this exact path, copy to the clipboard. Then I will go back to my study settings, analysis, studies, Telegram chart drawing alerts, and then go into the input number 4, full path to chart image folder, and paste in that path right there. Apply. You should see some updates and stuff. And if you still see that specified folder does not exist, take a look in your directory install of Sierra Chart. And if you don't see the folder that's called logs, we need to create it. We're going to create that folder now by just creating a new chart drawing alert. So I'll right click on that line and I'm going to add an alert to the line. So it'll be a crossing or equal to last price, enable it at the top left, only trigger once, alert sound, whichever one you want. And I'll just drag it so it gets filled. Okay, so now it's been triggered. And at this point, you should stop seeing specified folder does not exist, because if you're like me and you're running a fresh install, it would have created the folder, and there it is right there, logs. So that's just a step that you might have to take if you don't even have that logs folder. What I'm going to do now, essentially, guys, is just go ahead and send another alert and take a look at what happens. Okay, so we have error opening image file, image has been saved, and there we go. We get a message on Telegram. So this is what the alert will look like here. We have a screenshot of the chart. We have some information about the time, the chart book, the source chart, etc. I can click there to see the screenshot. Okay, let's do a few more tests now. So I'll close that message log. And you can disable the message log too if you want by going to Window, Disable Visible Message Logging. But it is important when you're first setting stuff up. I'll go to a completely different chart now, which will be this one. And I'll create a line here. And then I'll create an alert on this line. Last price crossing or equal to. And I'll just bring the chart to a 1-minute chart because I want to see exactly what the price is doing. So I have a line here with an alert. Okay, so the alert on this chart now has been triggered, and I'll go over to Telegram to take a look, and you can see there's that chart. You can see it's a screenshot of this chart now of the alert being triggered with all the information about the chart that triggered it and all that. Okay, so that's with charts in the same chart book. Now I'm going to show you how this works with charts in different chart books. So I will start by creating a new chart book, and you know what, for this purpose I'll just copy a chart to that chart book. So I'll go over to this chart, chart number 1, and I'll go to chart, duplicate chart to chart book, and I'll duplicate it to chart book 1, and I'll switch to the chart book. Okay, so the way this study works is it's aware of only the alerts that are taking place in the current chart book. The screenshot functionality that I implemented in Sierra Chart can only take a screenshot of a chart that's in the chart book of where the function call is originating from. So basically each chart book needs to have its own instance of this Telegram chart drawing alert study. So if you have 2 chart books open like this, or 5 chart books open, and you want to be alerted every time an alert takes place in each one of those chart books, you need to have this study open on one chart in each one of the chart books. It doesn't matter which chart the study is applied to, it just has to be there somewhere on any chart. And it's going to take care of all of the charts in that chart book. So I will add the study now to the second chart book. What you should do is once you've set up your chat ID and everything and your image folder, you should just set these as the defaults. So you click on set defaults once it's working and everything. Then you go over to your new chart book and you will now add the study to your chart, and it should get populated with the defaults. So there we go. So now what I can do is put an alert on this chart book, which the new chart book name here is called Chartbook 1. I'll add the alert here. I'll wait. So I've added the alert. Okay, it's been triggered. And we get the message. It took about a second, but we got it. And as you can see here, the source chart book is Chartbook 1. So basically what happens is if the alert took place in a different chart book, the study ignores it. If the alert took place in the current chart book, then it sends the telegram. And that had to be implemented because of a limitation with one of the Sierra chart functions. Okay, so there's our screenshot of our gold chart there, of our alert being triggered. So as long as you follow all the steps I listed here and in this video, you should get the study working. If you don't, send me an email, send me a message, and I will aim to get that fixed as soon as possible. It is an open source study, so bear with me if I don't answer immediately, but at the same time, I'm very happy to support this to make sure it works properly. Read the documentation for a bit of extra information here about the log file path, because if you moved your Sierra chart data files folder from the installation directory, you're going to have to specify the log file path explicitly. So if you're one of those weirdos that moves the data files folder on Sierra chart, no offense, you're going to have to do this. You're going to have to go to the study. You're going to have to say SC data folder is not an installation folder. Yes. And then you're going to have to specify the explicit path to the logs directory. So in my case, it would look something like this path, except it would say logs at the very end. And this is only in the case that you moved your data folder out of the Sierra chart installation directory, which you should not do. It's not recommended to do this, but I understand that some people do this. Okay. And that's it. So the next thing is, guys, we'll step through some of the source code for some of you nerds out there, but if you really just want to use the study, send me an email and we can take care of that ASAP. All right. So I'm going to go over to look at the source code here. The study has a few dependencies. One of them is CURL because there is a native function in Sierra chart to send a HTTP post request. However, this method I'm using in the Telegram bot API is called send photo. In order to send a photo from your local system onto their HTTP bot API, it has to be sent using multi-part form data, and I really just didn't know how to format the object to get that working. So I decided to just use CURL. Much easier. There's plenty of working examples already out there. So CURL here is in a separate function called send photo. I'm calling this function in a separate thread, which is fine for the study because it's only calling it, once in a while when a chart alert is triggered. However, if you're sending, a lot of requests, if you have some kind of a crazy HTTP client server thing going on, it's not recommended to call things like this in a separate thread. Instead, you should use asynchronous HTTP models, and that's it. So this one is a synchronous request, but I'm calling it in a separate thread, so it's like a fake asynchronous request. Okay, so this is that separate function. That's basically what it's doing. Now let's go over to the Sierra chart function. So here we have the start of our function. We have our declaration of our study inputs. We have a few persistent variables that I'm using to save the state of certain times. So basically what the study does is it looks into that logs directory, and if it doesn't find any files, it waits for a file to be created. If it's the first time Sierra chart is opened, it has a special behavior because every time Sierra chart is opened and an alert is triggered afterwards, it creates a new log file every time. So the study handles that particular case for when the Sierra chart is opened for the first time. Other than that, what it's doing is it's finding the file with the most recent modification time, and it is looking at that file, saving the number of lines in that file, and it's reading you the last line of the file whenever an alert gets triggered. So whenever the current last modification time is newer or more recent than the saved in memory last modification time, the study then knows that a modification has taken place, and it goes ahead and looks at the file, saves the data, and then sends that to you in a Telegram alert. So I'm just explaining to you what it does. Let's continue stepping through the code. This is the variable that handles the first time start. It's a persistent variable. We have our set defaults. This is just how you write in the documentation into the study. So when someone clicks on study settings, description, they get all the documentation listed here. You can just skip past all this. So we have our study defaults and our input declarations. which is pretty simple, nothing much going on there. This is just a precaution, and the study defaults. Some basic Sierra chart stuff. If the study is disabled, it's off, it doesn't work. Check for the chat ID, that's the first thing it does. And then this is some code that handles if they want to use a custom bot token. The next thing is I wrap the study in the timer. Shout out to Frozen Tundra for this timer. I use this thing quite often, and I actually have another version of it that uses a standard library in C++ because it's such a useful little timer loop that basically checks if a second or two has passed. In this case, I'm checking if 2 seconds have passed. If 2 seconds have not passed, the study just doesn't do anything. If it does pass, then the study will continue. The reason why I put that timer there is because I don't really want to be polling this file, you know, hundreds of times, thousands of times per second. I'd rather just pull the file, you know, once every second or two. So the study actually looks into the directory and it's polling the directory. Polling means it's actively looking to see if anything has been changed. It's peeking into the directory. Hey, has anything changed? No? Okay, we're out of here. 2 seconds passed. Hey, has anything changed in here? Yes? Okay, send them a telegram. And that's really the simplest way that I found to implement this. I'm sure there's some way that you can set up a variable that, you know, kind of like a webhook that sends the study a signal whenever something has changed. But based on the way Sierra chart study functions work, this seemed to be the simplest possible way to implement that. And that's it. So let's keep going. Get the chat ID from the input, set up some variables for the host and the method, get the directory of the Sierra chart data folder. And then what we're doing here is we're configuring the paths. So we look for the text Sierra chart. And then what happens here is it sets this variable called data folder path, which actually should be called log folder path. Basically sets it to a substring of this variable we got from the Sierra chart variable, and it appends the word logs to the end. So it's using the data folder path to get the logs folder path. And that's why if you have your data folder in a different directory, then the study is not going to work correctly. Okay. Next thing is just make sure if they specified to use a custom path that they actually provided the path. Here are some local variables that help the study function the way it's supposed to. And then here there's one final check for if the logs folder doesn't exist. We're using standard C++ library called file system, std file system, and we're iterating through the directory to find the file with the most recent modification time. Now something that I just thought of here is that I am aware of that in the logs directory there's also installation logs and maybe crash logs that appear here. So I may have to check on that, and I may need to add an additional check to make sure that the files actually start with the text alert log. Get the file name, count the number of files, not strictly necessary. I think I may be able to comment that out. Get the last write time of the file, convert it into a time in seconds from epoch. If this is the first time the study function is run, save it to check on the next iteration. This handles if only one file is present, and I think it handles if no files are present too. Else, if there is only one file, we will not get here. We should get here on the following iteration. Basically, in this for loop, we're iterating through the entire directory. And by the end of the for loop, we should now have the file with the most recent modification time. And depending on if it was the first time the study function was run after Sierra chart is open, it's going to return a different item, because there's a special behavior that's necessary for when Sierra chart is first run. Then ensure on the first call to the function that number of files is initialized to memory, necessary for the check below to determine. So basically this code is necessary again to ensure that the behavior works the first time Sierra chart is run. So basically if num files memory is equal to 0 and number of files is not equal to 0, we're explicitly initializing num files in memory to not be 0. Because if num files in memory is 0, the study is going to do some special behavior. So now this is really where the meat and potatoes of the code takes place, because we're accessing the file with the most recent modification time, and we're performing a check based on the time in memory of the most recent modification time compared to this file here. So basically we got the name of the file with the most recent modification time. Now we're directly accessing that file. We're checking if the modification time of this most recent file name, if it's more recent, then it's going to perform some behavior. So it saves the last write time of our file into a local variable, converts it to a time in seconds. This is special behavior for if num files in memory is not equal to number of files. If we get here, it means that Sierra chart just created a new log file after being open, and we need to read the first line out of that new file and send a telegram. So this is an example of where the special behavior is handled. Okay, so I'll skip over all of this for now. Here's the next block of code, which is the first time it actually reads the file when Sierra Chart is open. The first time it reads the file, I don't want to send any telegrams. No telegrams should be sent, but what it needs to do is it needs to inspect the file and get a few pieces of data from there. I'm using a persistent variable in Sierra Chart, which is a variable that remembers its number between calls to the study function. So if it's 0, it means it's default, it hasn't been set to anything. When this code block is executed, I'm then changing it to 1 to make sure that it never ever gets here again until you take off the study and then put it back onto your chart, because this is behavior that's only supposed to happen one time, and then after that, ignore this entire code block. So set it to 1 to not trigger again. Read how many lines are in the file using ifstream, which is a standard C++ library. All it's doing here is it's opening the file and saving the number of lines in the file. Every other time we read the file after Sierra Chart has started, we get here. This is pretty much the regular behavior of the study. So pull the file for a change to the last write time. That's the first thing it's doing. If the current time in seconds is greater than the last time in seconds, this last one here, this is a persistent variable. This one is a local variable. We get here if the write time is different than what was previously saved. So it means that the study needs to perform some behavior. So we open the file for reading. There's a couple of precautions that I wrote in there. Close the file, open it again, and then we basically get the last line in the file. So here there's a bit of fancy code. So the first thing is, remember globally the new number of lines, so that if we keep Sierra Chart open and more alerts get triggered, it's not going to read you past the lines that already took place. It's going to read you only the new ones. Okay, and then we have some string parsing logic right here. So we're getting some iterators, std size t. So it's looking for some specific text strings here on that line in the log file. And if you don't know what it looks like, I can just show you. It's basically this. There are these things. So my study is coming in and reading here and parsing this text and taking specific pieces out of it and then formatting that into a text object and then sending that to you over on Telegram. So the next thing is here, this bit of text here is to save the name of the chart book. So we get the chart book number, but actually what we're getting out of this is the chart book name. The chart book name is used to check if we're in the current chart book or not. This is just a precaution, and then what we do is we set up string views using each of our iterators that we previously configured, and then I'm using boost format just for convenience to put all those string views together into one string, and then that's the string that I put into this line variable, which is std string, and that's what I'm going to send over into the Telegram request when I pass it into the HTTP function. Next thing is I'm getting the chart book name where the alert was generated from, and I'm comparing that to the name of the current chart book. If it is equal, then we go ahead and do our business. If it is not equal, then nothing happens. This is just in place as an example, but normally what the study will do by default is it's going to use send photo, not send message. So look at this if statement. If input chart send image is equal to 0, meaning they explicitly turned it off and they didn't want to receive a chart screenshot, it'll use this behavior right here. But normally what it'll do is it'll fall here, which is send photo. It creates the file path to our image file. This code is important. It'll handle if the images folder that you specified in the images path is not correct or the folder doesn't exist. It'll catch it right here. Then we call the Sierra Chart screenshot function with the chart number as well as the file path name to save the file. Go ahead and call that. All right, then we're calling our request thread with the necessary variables and detaching the thread so the study function can continue functioning, because Sierra Chart study functions are called on the main thread, which if you allow that to happen with a HTTP request, it could take half a second to go through. It'll freeze Sierra Chart until the request returns, and you don't want that because it's a trading software. You need to see every single tick happening. Yep. Once we're done with the alert log file, reading it and parsing it, we close it, and that's pretty much it. When the study is closed or deleted off our chart, we're setting some variables to 0, and that's pretty much it. This little last piece of code here is essential for handling the behavior the first time Sierra Chart is run. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. I'm happy to accept all your comments and criticism. I really want to get better. I really enjoy coding. I think I'm pretty good. I have a knack for it, and I'm really good at finding problems. If you have software that you make that you want to find problems in, send it to me. I'll find at least 5 of them in 10 minutes. Thank you. There's another study on that repository that you might want to check out. It's this one right here, limit to price. The source code is available in the repository, and check out what it does in that video right there. Thank you. Take care.